Things unbelievable.
It is a good microphone.
All right, here we are. Welcome to episode 14 of Beer and Bastards. The show is wildly successful. We have every studio in the world asking us to go on television, but we refuse. We like this medium. It's we get to our viewers that we care about more so. Then that's a true story.
Stand.
We are very principled. We're principled libertarians / conservatives here. I'm probably the only conservative, but that makes me more awesome than everyone else, except for Rachel, who obviously has great lipstick on. But I want to introduce everybody. I have Grant Phillips here from the Modern Libertarian, and I'm proud that I remembered the name of the page this week. He's also at We Are Capitalists, which is an excellent page. Too bad I can't say the same for the guy who started it, Jason Hubbard, who's kind of weird. We also have Matthew Palumbo, who wrote 2 books, one in defense of being classically liberal, the other, The Conscience of a Young Conservative. 2 actually very good books. I own one of them. The other one's a little bit expensive.
It's featured on the back of it, actually.
I am featured on the back. I am on the back of his book, and I'm very proud of that. I tell girls that all the time at the bar. I'm on the back of Palumbo's book, and
did they ask the
that is so kinky?
Yes, they asked. Yes, and they just literally, it's like they're like, so are we going to my place or yours when I say that? And I'm like, yours, duh. I don't want you to know where I live. Never mind. Anyway, I also have Michael Lee, who's back again. Finally, he had a little. He's coming back there from. Oh no, well you were already back. We already introduced you back to the United States of America, didn't we?
Yeah, we did that. We did that part.
He's the purveyor of Being Liberal Logic Facebook page. He's also at Being Classically Liberal. And very insightful stuff. Kind of weird. Comes off as kind of a dick. But anyway, nice guy. I like him sometimes. When he's not talking sports, I like him because he's very confused on sports. It's like he's trying to inject logic and reason into something where there's more about feels. So I'm sick of you. All right, and our featured guest is Rachel Mills, who worked in Ron Paul's congressional campaign as a communications director.
No, the congressional office.
Congressional office. I apologize. As a communication director for 5 years.
Yes. Also
has a podcast called Liberty After Dark.
Yes.
Where can they find the podcast? Is that on iTunes and so on and so forth?
It is on iTunes. You could search for Liberty After Dark, and it should show up on Stitcher as well as Liberty.me, of course. And it's been on hiatus for a little bit, but we're coming back real soon. I promise.
I have heard of that podcast, Liberty After Dark. Probably
super famous.
It is super famous. Way more super famous than Palumbo and his books, I bet.
And the important thing about me is I'm drinking Stella Artois. I'm drinking beer just for you guys.
One of the finest.
I'm a wine girl, and this is actually really good beer.
It's one of the finest Belgian beers there is. And if anyone says anything different, they're clearly batshit crazy.
They must be named Michael.
Clearly.
Not the guy
that
lived
really
in
good,
Belgium.
Actually.
Not the guy that lived in Belgium for 4 years.
No, he has no idea what he's talking. He's very. That's called biased, okay?
Yeah.
And also, I want to talk about your show, Rachel. That's coming on. You're starting a show that's coming on next week after Beer and Bastards, called Politics After Dark. Your premiere is next Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, correct?
Right after you guys. So all of your audience needs to follow along and watch my show.
Okay, and what type of topics would you talk about in your show?
Politics. Yeah,
okay.
Politics. Yeah,
right.
After Dark.
So Politics After Dark, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and what I want to do is just have a lot of my friends who I know just from libertarian circles who are very sharp and very smart and opinionated and have valuable things to add to a conversation to join me as co-hosts every week. And then as well, I want it to be open to random people to be able to come on air, and if you've got a webcam that works and you're not too echoey with your sound, bam, I will put you on the air with me, and we will have a conversation.
Would you even be willing to put Grant Phillips on the air? Because that's
no.
That's dangerous. That's pretty dangerous.
Yes, I'm kidding.
I want to start with you, Rachel. Go ahead. Did somebody have the question?
Yeah, can you have me on your show to promote my stuff that no one reads?
to promote what?
To promote what, Palumbo?
I didn't catch it.
It looks like Palumbo's frozen again.
He's
That's
frozen.
pretty standard for
Oh,
any technical problem.
I will have him on to promote anything he wants.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
I want to start with you here, Rachel, and I know we'll see what happens with Matt Palumbo. It's a really interesting face. He's frozen. Is he frozen on yours too, Mike?
Yeah, he's frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This kid's unbelievable. He's got to sign out and sign back in. But anyway, let me start with you, Rachel. And I don't know if I guess it's going to be two issues here. One is the Freddie Gray debacle, and then I'm going to separate it with the Baltimore riots because I don't think the riots tie into the Freddie Gray thing.
Unfortunately, that is so true
Right,
at this
so
point.
I need to
Hey,
separate.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I cut out after asking Rachel if you would help me promote my shit. Say yes or
your
mock
shit.
no.
Well, I'm backed into a corner now. I said I would have you on my show to promote anything you want, and now it's shit.
Now it's shit. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, that answers that question. All right, go
And
on.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you're back, and I'll say it again, Matt, so you hear it. I wanted to separate the Freddie Gray incident from the riots. Obviously, I don't think they really even correlate to one another anymore in this sense. But we'll start with the Freddie Gray debacle, and I want to start with this, Rachel. I think there was a video, and did you see any of that video? Did anybody see any of that video?
Yes.
Okay, we see the video.
I saw the video. I didn't watch it closely enough to be like slicing and dicing every individual frame, but it looked pretty brutal to me,
Right.
and that's yeah, and the ride that they described, like where they handcuff you with your hands behind your back and drive as roughly as possible so that you bump around in the back of the paddy wagon. Yeah, this is all very mundane and very horrible treatment that is all too common in police activity. But it's just it's unfortunate that the riots they've put me and many others in the position of not defending the police, but sort of the whole issue has been distracting from the behavior of the police, which is not right.
Yeah,
and
you say
instead,
let me stop you there. When you say
Yeah.
the police, one, is there? Let me ask, and this is going to be a two-part question to you, and then I'll move to Mike. Do you feel that there was a shred of evidence that race was involved in treatment? One.
No.
Okay. And two.
not at all.
And two, which it was a disgusting video. It's horrible what happened to this guy. No doubt about it. I just want to reiterate that no one really knows what happened here. There's an investigation going on. No one knows. Two.
Okay.
Go ahead. I mean, we saw the video. The video looks horrible. It's a horrible look. I mean, it was disgusting.
Yeah,
Two.
I mean, it's terrible. This poor guy is screaming. He's obviously in pain.
Right. Now, when we say police, do we mean all police? I don't think Baltimore
No.
PD. Okay.
No. I actually got into a lot of trouble over Christmas, and I can go into this a little bit later for posting something that was a little bit along the lines of, they're not all like that. I posted a good cop story, and I love good cop stories. But the reason that I don't think this has anything really to do with race is if you look at the statistics for the racial makeup of Baltimore and Baltimore government and Baltimore police.
Right.
They're well represented within government.
Right.
I think this has much more to do with class, socioeconomic status.
Okay.
And the drug war. The drug war sort of backs people into a corner, especially in the inner city. You get into a position where there's not really. I mean, the education sucks, and the job opportunities suck. And then you see these drug dealers, with the fancy rims or whatever, and that seems like if we're going to get into economics, that seems economically like the best option. You get into that and jail time and going the wrong side of the law is just sort of a cost of doing business. That's sort of, I think, the culture that we're dealing with there, and I don't think it has as much to do with race as it does with class, and just the inner cities and the drug war and just the battlefield that we've put them on.
Right. Okay, those are good points. I want to move to Mike now, and I want him to get to speak to some of that. I know Mike feels similar to you on the drug war, and I don't want to ask you about the drug war, Mike. I know your thoughts on that, and they're interesting. We can get to that a little bit later. I want to know, one, do you see this as widespread in the police force as far as it happens with, the Freddie Gray incident? I mean, we've seen the Trayvon Martin thing we had, which had nothing to do with police. We had, what was it, Eric Garner in New York, and we had, what was the other, Michael Brown, right? Everybody jumped to conclusions there, too. Do you see this as widespread, or do you see this as the media trying to portray a narrative in a sense?
Well,
go ahead.
To clarify your question, are you asking if the racial abuse is widespread or if police
right
abuse is widespread?
Both racial, obviously they're not saying that police, I don't think the media is coming out with a narrative saying police brutality is widespread. I think they're coming out and saying police brutality only happens to black Americans. I don't see them coming out with stories where white people are abused as such. I just see it happening with either a white cop and a black person every single time. So it seems to me that they're trying to forward a narrative. They're trying to keep this balkanization going. What do you think?
Well, I think, to answer this in two parts, I think that the whole race issue has been totally discredited. Kevin over at Unbiased America, I think it was Kevin that made the post. It's a great page. You should like it, even though Kevin's an asshole.
Everyone knows that.
He made a great post that shows interactions with police. White people are killed at a higher rate per arrest than black people are killed by police. So if there's any way to measure interactions, and that's pretty tough to do, but I think Kevin did a good job of pointing out that, hey, every time there's an arrest, it's actually whites getting killed at a higher rate than blacks are getting killed by police. And to me, that's a huge indicator that it's not a race issue. I think Rachel.
Mike, there's more whites in the country than there are blacks.
It's per capita.
He said rate. He said rate.
It's no, the figures
That's a
Mike's looking at are adjusted for crimes committed, so it takes that into account.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, you see the raw numbers. I've seen this get shared on Facebook a lot. CNN had a graphic up where it showed that more white people had gotten killed by police than black people. Well, obviously, anybody that knows anything about statistics knows that's not surprising, since 72% of the country is white. And actually, if you break that graphic down, it actually advances the narrative because a higher percentage, black people are getting disproportionately killed, but black people also commit a disproportionate amount of crimes. So that didn't really advance the point that people were trying to push. But when I talk about what Kevin posted with interactions with police per arrests, so you have that data point, as a percentage, whites are killed at a higher rate by police than black people. So not raw numbers, because that's obviously ridiculous. Obviously, more white people get killed. So I don't think race is a big issue here, and I think Rachel hit on it.
Okay, go ahead. Go.
Well, I think Rachel hit on it. The bigger issue is socioeconomic status. I don't think race has much to do with it, and it just so happens that because of some of the socioeconomic issues, black people are disproportionately poor and disproportionately affected by some of these failed policies.
Let me stop you there for a second. Let me ask you this: the socioeconomic status and the reactions to the Freddie Gray incident. I see these people out there. This is like a reaction. This is a media-generated, politically generated, response to, I think, capitalism. I think it's at its core anti-capitalist. I think they're out there, and it's we need help, we need this, we need that, and they're just these failed liberal policies, and it's under the auspices that only government can help them, and that this is the capitalism that's keeping us down still. Would you agree with that, Mike?
I don't know if if the media's portrayal has as much to do with that. I think the media just likes riots because people. I mean that's.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I mean, you could say that and I'm sure a lot of people have made that point that capitalism has failed the inner cities when really it's government liberal policies that have failed the inner cities the most. But I don't think the media is trying to make
war
that.
on drugs.
Okay, but let me ask you this, and let me challenge you on that. How many times have you heard the media say it's failed liberal policies? How many times have you heard them say, well, the mayor there is black, the House representative there is black, the president's black, their entire city council's black, they're all leftists. Who are they blaming? Who's we? Who's we that needs to help? Why don't they mention these policies? Why is it like, well, we don't want to directly come out and say it's the white patriarchy and the evil capitalist pigs that keep these people down. I kind of pick up on that. Matt, do you think I'm going too far? I know you know a lot about that.
About what, the white capitalist patriarchy?
Yeah, just like they paint this narrative to create a division, and certainly within racial communities, we've seen this happen more and more lately. And I mean, it's just getting fired up. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
they're all these they're these extreme liberal cities, which is similar to what happened in the 60s. But go ahead.
No, I mean, the narrative I've seen is more the racial narrative, like that Mike elaborated on, and I was actually going to cite the exact same Unbiased America post in response to you asked me that question, so he kind of covered that.
Okay.
Something interesting, I think, is that during the Ferguson riots, there was a piece that went viral on Gawker arguing that because there are riots like this in response to police brutality, that police will kill less black people.
Right.
Clearly, that didn't turn out to work. Yeah.
No.
I mean,
And and I'm just honestly, I'm pretty busy, so like my opinion on this conflict, or sorry, on the riots, is just what I see on Facebook and me reacting to it. So it's like there are people trying to paint this narrative as if it's like, the oppressed rising up against the oppressors by destroying their own community, which is predominantly black.
Right, and those oppressors, those oppressors are the white patriarchal capitalists that intentionally keep these people down.
I know we were nice when you
don't really want
to mock that post Carl made about the Boston Tea Party, trying to comparing it to the. I'm sure you all saw it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Trying to compare it to
I was the one that pointed that out to Corey.
Right, but and Grant, let me get to Grant. Who are they? Okay, the left. That's a perfect example. The left is comparing this to the Boston Tea Party, to absolute tyranny. Okay.
Yeah.
Imposing taxes on without representation. Who's not represented in these communities, and why are they not represented? What is the? I don't understand the narrative the left tries. This is all This is all for political reasons. There's no other reason.
Well,
Grant,
what's funny about the North compared to the South is that the North is much more segregated, the urban environments. And in cities like Baltimore, I live in Philadelphia, we're run by the mayor's black, the next mayor's probably going to be black, the entire city council is black, yet the entire city is segregated down to the line in the sand. And it's kind of, in that way, it's mind-blowing. And the stats in Philadelphia and Baltimore is a terrible, terrible place. I'm not surprised at all. There's going to be a protest tomorrow in Philly. I'm like ready to hunker down and like guns up, but like it's really they can't blame anything but a long decades history of just terrible policy making, starting with a minimum wage. And up through the drug war and everything that we've been talking about. But they really kind of voted themselves into it. Blacks always vote big government Democrats, and big government Democrats gave them what big government is going to give you. And I think it's terrible, but it's hard to say if it can be fixed. Anything can be done solvably within the next 10 years.
Oh no,
I don't think it's possible.
Go ahead. Who's talking? I missed who was.
No, I said politics usually doesn't fix anything. So
exactly, and that's what it is now. Now it's politics, and that's not.
But politics.
And you have generations that are trained to look towards politics and government to solve problems, and that's unfortunate because they only make stuff worse.
Right.
And I think probably the people on the ground, the rioters that are burning down businesses, they probably know that they're black-owned businesses. They know that this is not a race issue. I bet you if you talk to any of them and you got to the heart of their issues, they would tell you that it's a socioeconomic problem. But the media loves to divide people along the lines of race because that distracts from the actual issue, which is crony corporatism and the elites that are actually killing the middle class and killing opportunity, and but race is a much more sexy narrative to run with in the press rather than the actual problem, which is cronyism, socioeconomic status, the drug war, all of that stuff that are the real problems that we could easily solve, with just less government.
I've heard the narrative pushed too that the only reason people are outraged at these riots is because the rioters are black, and that if white people did the same thing, no one would be outraged. But I think it's absurd. And
No,
like,
well,
The state riots lasted less than 24 hours.
like,
You know,
the
they're-
comparisons they give,
Destruction is
though.
destruction.
No,
Yeah.
like the comparisons they give though is they'll talk about like a hockey game where a bunch of white people went out and did crazy shit, but it's like
Canadians.
it's for like a period of less than a day. It's not like these prolonged riots which are going on for weeks, so there's no comparison between the two.
Right. But it's funny you say that, and this is what I was saying earlier. It's like what the media portrays is these things as. If you look at the riots, it's like, oh, they're out there, they're fed up, they're tired, they want justice. I don't know if you remember. Right, the man. I don't know if you remember when the Tea Party was.
I don't know who the man is.
The Tea Party was having these demonstrations and so on, and they were trying to nail him. They're racists.
Yeah.
They're, there's violence. They tried to get him for violence, race, anything that they could pin on them. The media tried absolutely everything. It wasn't like they're fed up with the debt. They didn't want to deal with the real reasons. Go ahead.
There's like this an MSNBC where they did a story on a guy who brought it was like some sort of assault rifle on his back to a Tea Party event.
Right.
They did a close up on his back of just the gun, and it turned out the reason they did that is because the guy was black, and the narrative was that this guy was a racist for bringing a gun to his back. He wants to incite violence against the president.
That can't be racist. Everybody knows that.
So it was just a black Tea Party, and they purposely cut out that he was black so they could make a narrative. So this is
what they do, and it's infuriating. Yeah. But let's get back to I want to get back to the economics of the riots here, and I want to talk about the socioeconomic conditions. This is where I'm going to separate it from the Freddie Gray incident. I think a lot of people, and I saw on television, I watched it, and they're interviewing people on the ground, and people are just saying, "Well, we're fed up. We're fed up. We fed up." Rachel, I don't know what that means. What are they fed up with? Are they fed up with? Is it implicitly capitalism, or is it they're fed up with government? Because I don't see it being government.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm not actually in their shoes. I can only guess. They're not doing a good job of communicating, but then again, inner city schools, Baltimore, how much communication do you think they really were taught? And it's just it's frustrating because I know that their situation is difficult.
Right.
It's not as easy as just go out and get a job and be a productive citizen. I know it's not that easy. That doesn't excuse what they're doing.
No, but why is their situation difficult is what I'm trying to... Why they're fed up. Why? Why is their situation difficult? I could walk out in the middle of the street and say I'm fed up. I'm fed up. Who am I fed up with, and why am I fed up? I know it's hard to talk for the.
Well, there you go. Because life is not fair, and maybe nobody taught them that life is not fair. Instead, they were pumped full of the nonsense we all were, saying, go pursue your dreams, do what you love, blah 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 blah. What are you good at, and do that, rather than do what the market freaking needs, and that's disappointing when you finally get to the point when you grow up enough to learn that the market doesn't need for you to be a guitar player. The market needs for you to stock these shelves or flip these burgers or do whatever it is until you can gain more skills or whatever and move up. But that's very frustrating when there's drug dealers with fancy rims driving around your neighborhood. So economically, they're making logical choices. Everybody makes logical choices when it comes down to the economics of their situation. So I'm not in their shoes. I can only guess. But I know they don't have an easy situation. That does not excuse destruction of private property for people that are only trying to make their neighborhoods better.
That's right. I think you've nailed it. I think aside from the fact that the obvious breakdown of the family is one of them, and the Great Society has a huge thing to do with that. But I think education, they have no choice on where they send their kids to school. Mike, I want to ask you a similar question. What are they fed up with, and what is the problem in these inner cities? You have a unique perspective on this, being from Michigan. I know you're relatively close to Detroit. Similar policies, right, in the inner cities. What do you think is at the core here? What are they fed up with, and why are these cities? There's these socioeconomic divisions in these cities.
Well, the big thing with Detroit, and Detroit's history is pretty complex. A lot of people moved out to the suburbs with it, as with every big city. They called it white flight. But I think what they're fed up with is they don't have any economic opportunities. But the problem here is Detroit has had, I think it's 58 straight years of Democratic rule in the city. Okay, the problem in Detroit is that even though these policies have failed them, it's a lot easier for a politician to come in and say, hey, I can pass this policy that's going to help you guys out, than for someone to come in, maybe say me, let's say I was running for mayor of Detroit. If I come in and say, look, we got to make some wholesale changes here, we gotta get government out of this stuff, you know, it's going to take some time, but in the end, the city will thrive. Well, that's not as appealing as an argument. People want relief right now, and these people are promising them relief, but they never deliver, and it just, you know, half a century it continues down that spiral.
Right.
So I think they're fed up with their economic opportunities. In Detroit, there's not a lot of opportunities. The auto industry has completely failed, mostly due to unions, and that's
right.
a big thing in Detroit.
But don't they represent the worker? Aren't they? Don't they represent the interests of the labor and the little guy?
They represented them right out of a job.
They're a monopoly. They're a labor monopoly. We talk about, oh, how dangerous is private business, you know, creating monopolies if we let the free market do its thing. Well, this is what labor does. They lock everybody else out of, you know, if I'm willing to take a job at, if I'm willing to take a job at Ford for $12.50 an hour, well, I can't because the unions have got the wages up at $20 an hour, and only a certain percentage of people can get in.
So they act like a minimum wage law, essentially.
It is, and they've locked so many people out of job opportunities, and it's just, I mean, all these policies are leftist policies. You got leftists love unions. Unions have completely destroyed Detroit, as well as Democratic governors, and they're fed up with their economic opportunities, but they want the quick fix. Right. And that's what leftists offer them, is a quick fix, and it just keeps continuing down that road.
That's right, and go ahead, Matt.
Well, Mike, I think it was either Melissa Harris Perry or Ed Schultz claimed that the reason Detroit failed is because of conservative policies. I'm assuming you don't buy that narrative.
No, well, it's funny.
Conservative policy in Detroit? When was that?
It was more of a joke. I don't actually need a response.
I mean, that was back when it was booming. There was conservative policy, and then
there wasn't even conservative policies back then. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think they can list one. So.
Wow.
Yeah, let me get to you, Matt. I know you study economics. I study economics. I love economics. Mm-hmm. And what Mike just delineated was kind of an economic principle, meaning that when wages fall, that's not necessarily a terrible thing.
It's an adjustment.
Right, it's an adjustment. And you have what Karl Marx wrote about many years ago. Was he wrote under the idea or the implicit assumption that that prices and wages are absolute, that there's no such thing between nominal and real. And that like if wages go down, prices stay the same, things like that they're not relative to each other. Do you think that's part of the problem? Like, people don't understand, like in a free market, if the wages are coming down, there's more people working. Prices also come down relative to wages. I think people think just only the opposite happens. That if wages go up, well then there's more people to buy things, and somehow prices stay the same.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know how we went from Baltimore riots to this, but I'll answer the question. So.
Or you can go off all day, but this is the root of the problem. This is the root of the problem,
Okay, no, well, yeah, people don't understand economics. I mean, the thing is, though, if wages go up and productivity goes up, prices will not. But yeah, I mean, the thing with unions is they actually they pay workers more and produce less. So yeah, it does affect prices a lot.
It pisses me off. That's all.
And also, since they're. Well, a lot of the workers who are pushed out of work due to a union coming in tend to work lower-paying jobs after the union kicks them out of a job. So it benefits some at the expense of others.
Of course, yeah. Their increased wages don't come at the expense of productivity. It comes at the expense of people that don't get a job.
Yeah.
It's nonsense.
I don't think anybody would argue that
Go ahead, Mike.
Benefit. I don't think anybody would really argue that unions don't benefit current members in current to the point where. Well, now it's gotten to this point in Detroit where the unions don't even benefit them anymore because Detroit went bankrupt, the car dealers went bankrupt, and now those people are even losing jobs because they don't got the money to pay them. But for 40 years, obviously the unions benefited the people that were currently employed.
Right.
But that comes at the expense of everybody else, and that's the same with minimum wage laws too.
Right, and this all
unseen. It's the unseen costs. Yeah,
that's right.
Unseen.
And the reason I went from the riots to this is because these are the policies that these people are fed up with, yet don't hear enough about. You know what I mean? I'm fed up with. I don't have a market in my town. Moreover, another economic principle with Baltimore is these shops and so on that they burn down and they loot, insurance costs are going to go up. Now prices are going to go up. That is, if a business even wants to go back there.
Yeah.
So they're wondering why in my neighborhood our price is higher. It's got to be because I'm black, and these white people want to charge, these Koreans or the Asians want to charge me more. And and they don't understand the fact that if whatever group of thugs that are in that area, those costs of the externalities created by them are dispersed amongst the entire area. There's good people that live there that have to pay these increased costs, and they do not know why. And the media is out there to tell them, yeah, it's these capitalists, the patriarchs.
Can I make one point, though?
Go ahead.
It's frustrating to me that the conversation has turned, I mean, not this conversation, but the conversation in general in the media has turned to exactly what we're talking about instead of police brutality, which I think is a real problem. And I mean, way to go. What a way to distract from your real problem and take all the focus off of those bad guys and put it on, put the microscope on your own, like, why are you so evil and destroying businesses? Rather than, I guess, what the aim was supposed to be, which was, to make policing more responsible, more accountable, more, peaceful.
Right.
And that's what's frustrating to me is that that's the way the narrative has gone, and I think that's really unfortunate, and that's just an example of bad strategy. If this was indeed the strategy, this was not well thought out. If it was to make a point about police brutality, which I'm thinking less and less that it was.
I don't think it was thought out at all.
So,
maybe it was just to steal stuff and get away with it.
Can I jump in really quick?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, so I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, Rachel, because, and not really disagree with you, but I just frame it a little differently. I think police brutality is more of a symptom of the bigger problem. So when you have, obviously, the drug war, drug prohibition in general, and then you have blacks who we're talking pre-civil rights era days, are really, struggling to come up, all things considered. Then you dump the drug war on them, you dump the Great Society on them, the minimum wage, the welfare state, public housing, pile up all these things. Now you have poor, desperate people with an illegal way out of that poverty. And that's right. You're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, purple, whatever. That is just going to increase your interactions with police. You're going to end up with fatherless homes. You're going to end up with dead parents and dead 9-year-old kids. And it just turns into complete chaos. And it's just... So I don't think, in other words, I don't think police go out every day thinking to themselves, how many black people can I beat to a pulp to that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they go out there with that intent. I just think the environment that has been created through failed policy is what results in that. No matter
it's pitting them against each other.
Exactly. It's just inevitable. I don't think
we don't disagree. I just think they don't deal with it constitutionally a lot of times. And
let me expand on Rachel.
I mean, who are you to deal with all the time? I can see at some point you're just like, these guys are just a pain in the ass. They're shooting at your partners, at your friends. They're killing innocent people. Eventually, you're just going to be like, you know what? Fuck these people. They need a beating upside the head. That's just human nature, isn't it?
No,
eventually, it's going to boil over. That's what I'm saying.
You're right, Grant. That's the socioeconomic issue with that. But I think what Rachel was saying, I don't think she meant it in socioeconomic terms. I just think she meant under the broad premises of police brutality, that it happens anyway to any class, to anybody at any time. Is that what you meant? Rachel, is that just police brutality in general? It knows no class.
I would clarify that I acknowledge these pressures that are on the police and the pressures that are on these communities. And nobody's perfect, and people get frustrated. And yeah, I acknowledge that. I don't disagree at all with what Grant just said.
Right.
I just think they have a tremendous responsibility. The police have a tremendous responsibility, and they have very strict parameters that they are supposed to operate under. And sometimes they get a little bit lax, and people actually die. They have like the power to kill, and they pretty much are indictment proof from what we've seen. They
don't have the power to kill. They have the power to defend themselves. But everybody most certainly does. But if they do have the power to kill, then they're abusing their power.
Well,
does that make sense?
I think they can commit manslaughter and get away without so much of a slap on the wrist.
So the issue is what they get away with then. I mean, they're above the law, that they're not subject to the same laws we are.
Yeah. What do they call it? It's not the thin blue line. It's something else. But they get away with a lot. They get excused for a lot because of the blue vests that they wear. And it's a huge responsibility. They need to be reminded that these people are frustrating to deal with, but you can't just go kill them.
Right. Murder is murder.
That's not okay. Yeah.
Murder is murder. But now here's my other question: do you see this happening? I mean, I don't know the statistics, and I've tried to look at how many times a cop has been accused of a crime and where there hasn't been actual evidence that they've committed said crime, where they have not been charged or tried or subject to the law. I don't see that happening. I don't see it as widespread as people make it out to be. I certainly don't want police brutality or cops abusing their power and just wantonly killing people. But at the same time, I mean, there's criminals in every human institution. The police aren't going to be perfect. No, the private company is going to be perfect. Mike, do you see police brutality as a widespread issue across all races, ethnicities, social classes, and so on and so forth? Go ahead.
Well, I actually kind of wanted to jump in because I think Rachel brought up a good point. I do think that the police, not police brutality is a widespread problem, but it could be a growing problem. I see a culture in law enforcement right now where it's really troubling to me, where you're supposed to be out there and you're supposed to protect and serve your community. That's kind of your goal. And it's gotten to the point where police, well, they want to defend themselves. And I understand the right to defend themselves, but you can't claim you have a dangerous job and then pull the trigger and kill someone the second you feel a little bit threatened. Your job is supposed to be inherently dangerous for a reason. And I do see, and this is why I think it's tragic that we have to talk about this racial issue, because it's not a racial issue at all.
Right.
It's a broader police issue. It's the police are doing this to white people just as much as they're doing this to black people, and I don't think all cops are bad. I hate that narrative. There's two extremes to this argument that I really hate. There's a middle ground here. Some cops are bad, some cops are good, but there is a culture spreading. But I think one point that hasn't been brought up yet, and it's kind of socioeconomic, but it goes along with the drug war, and Rand Paul's been out there talking about this, and that's federal minimum sentencing guidelines. The breakdown of the family unit in inner cities is a huge problem, and studies have shown for a long time that when fathers aren't around, that the result of that is bad economic results. And fathers aren't around in these communities because they're serving 15 years in jail for selling an ounce of weed.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big problem, because when you break down the family unit, as a conservative, I think you agree, when you break down the family unit, bad results come, and that's what's happening in these inner cities. So I think if one policy that could go a long way to helping these people is to stop putting their dads in jail. I think that would be a big help. The last thing I want to talk about was the statistics that you're talking about, and Rachel touched on this too, is police that kill people, they're only prosecuted and convicted, and I'm probably going to get the number wrong. I know it's between 1% and 3% of police officers that are involved in deadly shootings get convicted of a crime. That's a pretty high rate of people that get off. You would think it would probably be lower than that. I don't know if maybe 97% of cops are justified. Maybe they're not, but that's a pretty high number.
Right. I just don't see. I mean, to that number, I don't see a lot of cops going out there going, "God, I just want to shoot somebody today."
Do
you know what I mean? I don't. No, but I know that's not what you're saying. I know, but that seems about right to me. That would seem about right. I don't know what the general population are people murdering. Does it mirror the general population? Do you know what I mean? Like in general, how many, like what's a criminal population, and what rate are they killing people? What rate are they murdering people, and does it match up to the police force in aggregates? Do you know what I mean?
The only number I know is that fatal shootings by civilians, when they're brought to trial, only 3% are seen as justified defense killing.
Right. Right.
So 3% of civilian shootings are justified by the courts as defense,
So
and
it's like a flip.
97% of police shootings are justified as defense. Now, you'd expect police shootings to be a higher
right.
percentage than civilian shootings, so I'm not really like super concerned about that number, but it
Right.
does seem a little bit high to me.
Sure.
I mean, you see, I think a way to solve this problem is I like the body camera idea. As long as there's transparency, we can start to solve some of these problems.
Right.
I do think that it's not that cops are going out there like, oh, I want to kill someone today. It's when they get in situations where it's, a 50-50 or a 40-60 where they could possibly justify pulling the trigger.
On the margins?
They're defaulting to pulling the trigger. And
Okay. Good point. I wanted to. There are some questions. One of them is Taco Salad's mad that Matt blocked him, and that we should mute our mics when we're not talking. Thanks for the suggestions, but no.
No, well, before we go to questions, I just want to point out, I think no one touched on this in the Baltimore riots. I think one of the problems is the war on drugs.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think no one touched on that, surprisingly.
I touched on it a lot.
They did. I mean, yeah, I get yes, the war on drugs is one. What was I going to say? I'm sorry.
That was sarcasm.
I was going to say, I know. Are you, I was going to say, are you in the bathroom? Like, are you taking a
Well, I was just taking a piss, yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That is.
Did you hear me, or was I silent enough?
No, I didn't hear anything. It was
well, I did my job then. Okay.
It was almost like you were draining a squirt gun. So.
I didn't hear anything. Good job.
Yeah. It was like when when a girl goes to the bathroom. Now, one of the questions
I purposely aimed for the sides so you wouldn't hear me, all right?
One of the questions is from Hip Hop Fan 34. I like this question. Because it's so true to life, It's let's get to the real news. Our Lord and Savior Bernie Sanders is running for president. Will he win 49 or 50 states? That's an excellent question. I'm going to start with Grant on this one. I want your honest commentary. I don't see him losing more than 48. I'll be honest. I think he would do well, and I'm not.
He'd probably win Puerto Rico.
I mean, he'll win New York and California. I see him doing well. Go ahead.
If we're talking Democratic nominees, as of this point, he is going to be the presidential nominee.
And let me just mention too, let me segue in. Grant wrote a piece on why Bernie Sanders is wrong. I don't know if it ended. Was it why Bernie Sanders is wrong or why Bernie Sanders is wrong about everything?
Here's why Bernie Sanders is wrong about everything. It was
very
for the
good.
Libertarian Republic. He wrote an op-ed in the Huffington Post where he didn't cite a single source. Just went on and on about income inequality and his usual communist dictatorship stuff.
Grant, can you do me a favor and everyone a favor that's watching today and all of us on the panel here? What is income inequality?
It's really all right. So the way he puts it, basically the 1% receive like 99% of the wealth that is created, or the income that is created.
Who are they receiving this wealth from, Grant?
I don't know.
The poor will.
It's
poor?
It's hard to figure out.
Okay, so
Yeah,
wealth
it all comes at the expense of the poor. That's why we have a shrinking middle class. And
so what happens? So under Bernie Sanders' contention is that the government controls wealth, and then they just give it to 99% of the people, and he calls that corporatism. And they take all this wealth and they don't divvy it to poor people, hence making them poor.
I think his fallacy is based in the common thing that it's common thought is that income is a fixed pie. So if someone gains more income, that can only mean that someone else gained less income, meaning that it came at the expense of the poor or the middle class. That's obviously not at all true. Otherwise, none of poor people all have like cars and AC now. You know what I mean? It's very. I think he actually believes the things that he says, which is what worries me. Well, I think Warren is just like kind of conniving. I think he truly believes the stuff that he says.
I mean,
Can I just say?
Go ahead. Go.
Can I just say that it's a great country that we live in, where you can go to jail and pay your debt to society after having bilked all of those people out of their retirement savings and the NASDAQ, and then go on to run for president and have like a really good shot at winning?
Yeah.
I
think this is a great country where you can redeem yourself like that.
Bernie Madoff?
Oh. Never.
It's the same thing to me. I think Bernie Sanders is worse than Bernie Madoff. Bernie Sanders wants to redistribute wealth. He wants to violate individual property rights.
He wants everything to be free. He wants everything to be free, and he wants everyone to live at the expense of everyone else, and that is destined to fail from the beginning.
But why can't Matt? Can you tell me why things can't be free? Why can't I just go to the store and get a computer and them hand it to me? Why must I pay?
Because rich people are greedy and want to keep the money, their money. So
that's so true.
Yeah.
Corporatists overlords.
Yeah.
Thank you, God. Yeah. So what do we do about so we should vote in Sanders, and then with the force of law and go and circumvent Congress because that's a precedent now.
And also end the war on drugs.
Right, and make it right. Also end the war on drugs. Make things free.
Yeah.
Michael, I know you have a little political savvy, just a little bit. Other than that, you're kind of ugly, but you're not as ugly as Grant. So you have that going for you. What do you think Bernie Sanders' shots are as running from Hillary's left? And do you think Hillary kind of left this opening here for Sanders? Do you think it's possible Sanders could become the Democratic nominee?
Well, I actually had this conversation with Corey from Being Classically Liberal the other day, and I actually see a path to victory for Bernie Sanders. Unfortunately, because Hillary's been the anointed one here. And there's actually a lot of Democrats out there, I give them credit for this, that aren't really very fond of Hillary, based on the policy. Hillary's not a liberal. Hillary's more the mold of George W. Bush. So there's a lot of Democrats out there that don't really like Hillary Clinton. Now, the Democratic field is really, really thin for this election right now. I don't know who else is going to jump in. So if Bernie Sanders can become the anti-Hillary, to the left of Hillary, the real liberal, I see it, especially if he can win New Hampshire early, which he polls really well there, he could win the Democratic nomination. And then you look, maybe you got Jeb Bush coming in from the Republicans. Let's say he wins the nomination. Bernie Sanders is the anti-establishment candidate there from another Bush.
Right.
I see a path to victory for Bernie Sanders.
Can I give you the only difference? Let me give you the only difference between Jeb Bush and Bernie Sanders. Jeb Bush is a fascist, whereas Bernie Sanders is an all-out socialist. Bernie Sanders rails against corporatism, whereas Jeb Bush depends on it. So I mean, if we were going right, so they're both big, huge government, like corporatist. Bernie Sanders, give him credit. I don't think he's a corporatist. I think he literally wants government ownership of the means of production.
I think he's entirely oblivious.
Do you think so? I mean, I think that's pretty
completely oblivious. And everyone's okay with it, and everyone's cool with it. He connects with the average person who doesn't understand
that's scary,
how the
man.
real world works.
That is scary. That's a scary prospect.
Yeah, exactly.
Rachel, what are your thoughts on Sanders creeping up on Hillary's left here? I don't think Hillary at this point has a shot. I think she has so much baggage, and there's so much to nail her on that somebody go ahead.
It's almost like they're trying to sabotage her so that someone can come in as savior and rescue the Democrat Party. But I feel like Hillary's not going to be the nominee. It's going to be an Elizabeth Warren. I mean, it could be a Martin O'Malley. Maybe if Martin O'Malley makes an appearance in these Baltimore riots and has like a Rudy Giuliani kind of moment or something, that could be a stepping stone for him to step in and be the savior of the entire country. Like Rudy Giuliani was almost the nominee back in 2008. But I don't think it's going to be Hillary. I don't think it's going to be Bernie Sanders. I think that's a joke. I don't. Dennis
God, you're right.
I mean, Dennis Kucinich would be a better nominee because at least We actually, on Capitol Hill, we actually had a lot of respect for Dennis Kucinich. But, I mean, gosh, imagine a Sanders-Kucinich ticket.
Look, Kucinich is a nice guy, okay?
He's a nice guy with a really hot wife, Google
Have
you seen Elizabeth Kucinich?
No, but I'm going to Google that right when we get over here.
Now.
Yeah. Google Elizabeth Kucinich. You will not regret it. You'll thank me.
Google Dennis Kucinich. The second option is Dennis Kucinich's wife.
Yeah. Wait a minute. How old is Dennis?
She's beautiful.
Dennis Kucinich is in his mid-60s. He's got to be in his mid to late 60s.
68.
He's 68?
Yeah.
What's going on here? What am I doing wrong? Even that idiot can...
No, but I mean, Kucinich was an ally on certain things like the Fed and the war on drugs and those kinds of things. Bernie Sanders, I'm trying to remember.
Nothing.
I think he was an ally of ours on the Fed.
What's with his
Bernie
accent?
Sanders doesn't like the Fed.
Where's that accent from? That's Bernie Sanders. It drives me nuts.
Vermont.
After his face,
yeah.
Vermont. That's a Vermont. That's like it's like an amalgam of like a not like necessarily. I don't even think it's a Boston accent. It's just
New England. Vermont's part of New England, Will.
No, I know, but Boston. I know that. But in Vermont, they don't have that strong of an accent. I've been there many times. I've never heard an accent like that in Vermont.
Maybe he's playing it up for his constituency.
It must be, and it's annoying.
Always a smart move.
Hillary used to do that back when Bill was running for president. She used to talk with that southern.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they did. You're right. Good
She
call.
had the big hair. Yeah.
That was the smartest
They
thing
all know
Mike
how to
said.
play the game.
All right, now I want to move on to, and I want to get Rachel to start on this, and then I'll get to Matt because he hasn't talked in a while, and I'm going to ignore Michael because he's an idiot. Marco Rubio. I mean, he's looking pretty good right now. He's doing well in the polls. What do you think he has a chance? And would you rather see this? And this is a good question because there's other easy questions. Would you rather see Rubio or Walker if you had to pick one? Go, Rachel.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I know Rubio has some strong popularity among the establishment Republican set. I know because I went to a Republican meeting the other night and he was mentioned. Most everybody in the room was either a Rand guy or a Rand-friendly guy, but the only other name I heard mentioned was Rubio. And this was a young Republicans meeting, so, you know, they're all Rand.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But, you know, I'm embarrassed to say I don't know enough about Rubio to really comment intelligently on
Okay, that's fair.
the things that I hate about him. I just know that I hate him.
I mean,
I can safely say I remember being pissed off about him in the past. I don't remember why.
exactly. I know what you mean.
That ever happened? Just like I hated him a while back. I don't remember exactly the issue. I just remember he was bad on it. Let me go look that up. Click, 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 click. You know, but
he came in as a Tea Party favorite. He was like,
Right.
and then he lost the Tea Party on a few different things. One of them was in the government shutdown a couple of years ago when Ted Cruz was trying to defund Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
He really didn't take the forefront there because obviously he wants to run for president. And he thought it was going to harm. He thought it was going to harm the GOP in the 2014 elections, which it obviously did not. So it was a bad calculation. But Mike, no, you know what? Let me get to Matt. I want to ignore Mike for a second. Let me get to Matt. What do you think?
Walker versus Rubio.
Yeah, who would you want?
Honestly, I didn't really think highly of Rubio. I haven't really, but I saw him on the Daily Show, I guess, like a month or two ago, and he had some decent ideas. I guess that he outlined in his book that he was talking about. I guess one useful, or I guess the potential for him is he could garner a larger percentage of the Latino vote than most other Republican candidates. On the other hand, Walker was really great in Fast and Furious, so I might pick him for that reason.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so.
Scott Walker, like from the movie?
Yes, he is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, I got you
Yeah.
because I play on Paul Walker.
Yes, that was.
Got it.
That's what I was going for.
I got it. So he's in Fast. That I get. Michael.
Okay.
I think it's too soon for that.
It's too soon.
Sorry. Rest in peace, Paul Walker.
If you had to pick one and it had to be a toss-up between Rubio and Walker, who would it be and why?
Okay, well, here's the thing. I mean, if I had to choose between those two, I'll choose Walker over Rubio any day. Rubio's been he was a Tea Party favorite when he came in. He's been completely fake establishment Republican ever since. He tries to get that Tea Party support, but he doesn't. He's not a very principled leader. And I'll tell you this about Scott Walker. I'm not gonna toot Scott Walker's horn in the primary. I'm gonna be about Rand Paul first and foremost. I'll also plug Ted Cruz a little bit here and there. But if Scott Walker wins the Republican nomination, I will vote for him in the general election. I don't think Scott Walker is perfect, but I think Scott Walker would be a pretty good president, at least as opposed to some of our recent presidents. I think he's more in the mold of a Reagan who would be a more courageous leader and make some of the choices that need to be made. You look what he did in Wisconsin. That was not popular. He faced down a recall election, and he didn't back down from those choices. And I think that's the kind of leader we need. We need someone that's going to make some unpopular choices. So I'll vote for Scott Walker if he does end up winning the Republican nomination. I'm not going to support him right now, but I definitely take him over Rubio.
God, I hate that I agree with you on this one. Shit. All right, I'm moving on. That was good commentary. Now shut the hell up. Grant, Rubio or Walker, and why?
Well, Mike, that was a great goddamn comment I had to follow up on. I also am going to go with Scott Walker. I actually, because I'm a 1%er and whatnot. Rubio, I actually went to a Rubio campaign party when I was younger. My parents were friends with him when he was first running for Senate out of Florida. And honestly, even as an uneducated voter at the time, well, not as educated as I am now, I didn't get a really good vibe from him, and I never really have. He always seems really flaky on certain issues. And Scott Walker, comes from a humble background, so he's not really like your Harvard law professor kind of president. But yeah, he is decisive, and I will support Rand in the primaries. But
Right.
I would also probably vote for Walker. Is probably the only other Republican besides Cruz I would vote for in the general.
Okay, good. That was pretty good. Not as good as Michael's. So
No,
actually,
how could it be? He stole all the
That's what I mean.
one-liners.
He's better. He's better looking, and his commentary's better. So there's two things there. Sorry, buddy.
Fuck off.
Let me get a question here. This is for Mike Reed. We all know Mike. Everybody here knows Mike. And I'm going to give this to Rachel because she would know better than me. She's been in that world there. Do you think the recent foreign donations and email server scandals will actually matter for Hillary's chance? And we kind of touched on this a little bit, but a direct question is better.
It's up to the media.
Yeah.
If the media nails her on it and hammers the point, then yeah. But I mean, the media has given the Clintons a pass in the past, and there's a reason they called him Slick Willie. I mean, he could get away with anything.
Yep.
So I mean,
Why does it seem like nothing sticks to the Clintons? Why?
But I think that the patience is running out for the Clintons, and I think they're being sabotaged, and I think she's sort of being given her chance, and they're giving her enough rope to hang herself, and she is not going to be the nominee.
Okay.
And yeah, the email scandals, the foreign donations, I think that'll be the excuse, but I think they're just running out of patience, and this is why Hillary does listening tours. It's because every time she opens her mouth, it's just, she's just more unlikable by the second. I mean, you should put Frank Luntz on one of her talks, with the focus group.
Yeah.
Just watch the little dials go down. I hate her. I hate her. I hate her. Every time she opens her mouth, I think her team is very smart to say, let's just do a tour where you don't say anything. Just shut up.
Yeah, no, I know. I don't know who takes this woman seriously anymore. She's blatantly lied so many times. The email server, this thing, some outrageous tens of thousands of emails just disappeared. I can't remember what was the reason she gave. She didn't know how to use email from her phone, and I think she just even stopped giving reach. Just doesn't even want to. I'm not taking that question.
She doesn't care. She doesn't care. She's so used to getting away with everything, including murder, that she just doesn't care. And she's like, I'll just tell them whatever, and they'll go with it. And because they love me and they're in my back pocket. I don't think that's true anymore. I think they're losing patience with her, and like the best thing she ever can do and ever has done is shut up. But I don't think that's gonna work. I don't think it's gonna work anymore. I think in a couple months she's toast.
Okay.
And it's gonna be somebody else.
I could see that. All right. Michael, do you think it matters? But Mike's question, do you think this is gonna help to stop Hillary, or do you think she's just Teflon?
I think Rachel brought up a good point. Is a lot of what happens with some of these things that Hillary does is how the media portrays it. And I think one of the ways the media has portrayed the email scandal is just it's a petty thing that Republicans are going after Hillary for. But I mean, this particular matter actually kind of ticks me off. I was a military police in the Army. We have to get a security clearance to do our jobs. Now, if anybody in the military or any Defense Department position would have ever done anything that Hillary did, their security clearance would have been pulled immediately. She is the head of the State Department. She broke a huge law, and now we're supposed to trust this lady as president when she can't even follow a basic security law. To me, that is absolutely crazy. But the media is painting this as, oh, it's just a petty attack. This isn't something petty. You broke a huge law as the Secretary of State of the United States. Anybody else that does that with a security clearance is fired on the spot, will lose their clearance. But when it comes to the Clintons, oh, it's just a petty attack on the Clintons. It's not a petty attack. That's a big deal. You can't be doing stuff like that, and then we're supposed to trust you as Commander-in-Chief? That's insane.
I have a follow-up question. I have to challenge you here because, I mean, do members of the vast right-wing conspiracy like you get emails with talking points on what to hit? Clearly, this is a petty attack on Hillary Clinton. So who are your higher-ups? What are their names? And where are they working from? And who are they working for?
Damn,
I work directly for the Bush family.
Directly for the Bushes? I would have guessed Koch brothers. You're an establishment guy. I knew you were an establishment guy. I get it. I get you now.
Neocon Rhino.
Neocon status bootlicking pig. All right. Matt.
Yes, sir.
Do you think Hillary will ever be, to Mike's question, do you think anything will ever stick to the Clintons? Bill Clinton's obviously the best president we've ever had. He's never done anything wrong. Hillary is a great person who's never lied, and she just doesn't know how to use her email. And she had this private server at her house. She doesn't know how it got there. That seems about right, right?
Yeah, no one seems to give a shit what the Clintons do. But no, there's worse things she's done. Like, I don't know if you saw, like, I can't remember where I saw it, but it was like back when she was a lawyer. I guess, like, I'm sorry, I'm plugging my computer right now. But she was defending someone who was accused of a sexual assault, and it turns out like the guy had to take like a polygraph.
Right. That was when she was a lawyer. Yeah, when she was a lawyer.
Yeah, it was audio of her saying like, she got him off, and she's bragging that like, she was talking about the polygraph, saying like, that the fact that he passed the polygraph test forever shattered her faith in polygraphs, and she was almost mocking the fact that she got this guy off.
Yeah.
So I think there are much worse things people could draw attention to than the emails.
She's all about women and the glass ceiling and women and you know what I mean, and women and this and women and that. Well, she takes donations from Oman and Saudi Arabia, who don't even let women drive. And we could talk about the validity of that another time. Grant, your thoughts on Hillary Clinton and their? Let me get more specific. This foundation, where they get all these donations, and I don't know what the Clinton Foundation's helped so many people, and you have all these allegations now, quid pro quo, and so on and so forth. With I don't know, what was it, Kazakhstan, right? The guy in Kazakhstan, they go there, all of a sudden money's transferred, but it was just a coincidence. It was just a coincidence, and then Iran, and then Russia ended up with half of our uranium stuff. I don't know how any of this. It was all coincidence. What do you think? Do you think any of this will stick, or do you think the media will just get rid of it? What if it was the Bushes?
I think there are a very small amount of people who are just diehard Hillary fans, and they don't care how many books come out about her dealings in the back doors. And I think that they will still vote for her, and I think that that gives her a real chance of winning the Democrat primary because, frankly, Democrat voters don't seem very happy right now, all things considered, like last election, where they just really didn't show up at all. So I think she has a very real chance. Bernie Sanders is obviously going to be her biggest competitor.
Right.
But I don't know if it's going to stick to her. It kind of just seems like conjecture at that right now, as far as there's no smoking gun. There needs to be a smoking gun for it to stick.
Right. Mike, you have something on the emails, like an insightful insight? I want to know it.
Well, we just talked about that. That's what I was talking about.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, well, yeah, I said the emails are a big deal. Matt thinks that there's other things in her past that are a bigger deal. But yeah, I mean, this is a very recent thing that she did. This is Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. This is really recent. So that, to me, it's a bigger deal than maybe to most people. But I think it's definitely a bigger deal than how the media has brushed it off. You're going to be Commander-in-Chief of the United States military, which keeps all Western trade routes open, and we can't even trust you to not violate your security clearance. So to me, it's a big deal.
Oh, it's a huge deal. I think it's a huge deal in reality, whether people take it as one or not. I don't understand how. The thing is, I don't understand how people don't see it as a huge deal. You know, if this is George, if this is the Bushes, right? If this is a Republican, come on, this would be, oh my, this is horrible. Republicans would be out apologizing. That's what I see the GOP do the most, is apologize for just about everything. They come out and we're sorry. They look. Well, the Democrats can control the message, and the GOP is just totally reactionary. I've never seen anything like it. And let me ask you this, Rachel. Who elucidates the free market in Congress the best? You've been around Congress. No one rarely ever talks about the free market. Amash does. Who do you think does a good job of portraying the free market in an easy manner for people to understand, so they know it's the most efficient method and the most the most empirical method in order to prosper?
Well, Amash, as you mentioned, and Thomas Massey as well of Kentucky. Those two are excellent in Congress, and of course Rand Paul over in the Senate, easily. But I mean, I want to go back to a point you made about the media, and this frustrates me because I listen to Rush Limbaugh. It's a bad habit that I've had ever since
I like Rush
high
Limbaugh.
school.
He's entertaining. It's good.
He is an entertainer. By his own admission, that's how he classifies himself, as an entertainer, and he's entertaining. But he's made a career, really, out of pointing out hypocrisy in the liberal media. But the thing is, when a liberal does something wrong, then the Republican, the conservative media goes after them. And there is such a thing as the conservative media. And then when a Republican does something wrong, then the liberal media goes after them. You know, and everybody's got two standards, you know, one for our guy, one for their guy, and they're both hypocritical. So it's like, oh, if our guy did that, we wouldn't get it. Well, no.
Right.
If our guy did that, they would be going after our guy, and if their guy does that, then we go after them. And
Right.
I mean, it's just very bilateral, and we all attack each other, and we all don't have rock solid principles.
Right. And so let me challenge you on that, Rachel. Yeah, there's a conservative media. You have to find it. It's largely talk radio. Fox News is a GOP establishment shill. So yeah, they'll do some things. But a majority of the mass media, what people get, print and television, are all mainly slanted to the left. So they
very subtly, yeah.
Yeah, so they really do control the information. I mean, everyday people that aren't ideologues aren't walking out picking up a paper and seeing, how what the Clintons have done on a daily basis, like they would nail a Republican candidate. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the people that aren't interested. Like, how does it affect them that aren't? Like, I'm interested, you're interested. We'd go listen to Rush Limbaugh and laugh, or we would listen to whatever other. We would go to take a conservative point of view, perhaps read Crowdhammer or Soul or so on, or whomever. But people that every day see in the newsstands, on magazines, on general, on internet sites, are seeing these stories pushed by the media that are generally hammering Republicans. And I mean, if this was a front runner in the Republican Party, you would see this daily, day in, day out. Look what they did to the guy Mike Pence on the RFRA law. I mean, look how they framed a lot of those questions, as in, why are you discriminatory? You know what I mean? Like, that's the question.
Have you stopped beating your wife?
Exactly. They do it to Rand. They do this to Rand Paul.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're really framing the narrative on Rand Paul. That they even went as far as to say that he hates women.
Right.
Because of the way he treats his interviewers. I mean, maybe he handles his interviews poorly sometimes, and I would agree with that.
I don't. I think he handles it great.
They go to the extreme where let's hammer him that he hates women and he thinks he can talk over women,
I know. That's so frustrating because women should not be infantilized. Women interviewers should be held to the same journalistic standards, and that's really all he's doing. From someone who's hung out with the guy, and I feel like I know Rand. I know that's all he's doing. He's not looking at her gender. He's treating her like a hostile interviewer, which is what she was.
Right. And I don't think this hurts him. I don't think this hurts him at all. I think it's great. I'm like, thank God, nail this. I'm just nail her. That's what I'm thinking.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. I think there's a bunch of. Well, come on, Grant, with your sick mind.
Yeah, right.
Oh, stop.
Go ahead, Mike.
You hit on this, Will, and Rand Paul does a great job of this. When he was confronted with this, Rand Paul didn't back down.
Yeah,
He didn't
good.
apologize. You know, he said, okay, you know, I got
Should've.
he ruffled my feathers a little bit, and maybe I could handle it a little bit better sometimes. But when I don't like the journalistic standards that are going on, I'm going to call it out. And Rand Paul was unapologetic about that, and that's something that you touched on, Will, and I think that's a good thing. He doesn't have to back down.
And here's another thing. And the media. This is again the media painting a narrative. When Newt Gingrich was running in 2012, he was hammering reporters. I mean, hammering them, and he got a great reputation for that. I mean, even the media didn't nail him and say, "Hey, this guy hates women." You know what I mean? He actually would get bumps in the polls when he would do that.
And he might.
Well, they're like bullies. They're like bullies. They're gonna poke at you until they find what sticks. And if you start apologizing, then you're just gonna keep hammering on that little point and seeing if they can, further their little news cycle based on interesting apologies that you're going to make. But Rand, I think, has done a pretty good job in squelching that narrative, just because, he's not apologizing for something he doesn't need to apologize for.
Right.
There's no story here.
I agree. I mean, look, did he have to say shh to the one? No, but he's just trying to hey, come on, I'm talking. That's what you should say. Instead of that, be like, look, I'm trying to talk. Can I talk, please?
Can I talk? Are you from New York?
Yeah. But maybe that's why I see it as I'm like, finally, somebody nailing these stupid questions. I don't hear him asking libs questions and framing them that way. I don't hear them. I don't see one I don't see one honest journalist. The one I see is Brett Baer, and no one ever wants to come on his show. You know what I mean?
I like Shepard Smith.
He's
pretty cool.
Yeah,
he's sardonic.
I liked Ben Swan before he went batshit crazy.
Oh
He's not batshit crazy. No, Ben Swan is a good guy. You have to listen a little more closely. It's just that he deals with the questions that other people don't want to deal with, but he doesn't go on the batshit crazy side. He just talks about it.
I don't know. Some of the things that have been on his site lately, I'm starting to think he's been, talking to Alex Jones a little too much.
I haven't been to his site. I haven't been there.
He used to be great. When he was running that local media and he was doing that, he was awesome, but I don't know.
I've actually asked Ben Swan about that personally. I've actually worked pretty closely with Ben Swan. And I said, what about this sort of Alex Jonesy stuff? He's like, I am the anti-Alex Jones. And the reason why he says that is he will deal with the same issues but come to a more reasonable conclusion based on actual evidence.
I would love more reasonable than Alex Jones.
What?
Let me say this. I like Ben Swan, but I think he's got to make a profit on this website he's running. He left his media gig, and he's trying to get clicks. He needs people. He needs to drive traffic, and when you need to drive traffic, you got to post some clickbait. And I think he's better than Alex Jones. I'm not saying he's Alex Jones, but some of the stuff he's been posting, it makes me question him. I'd love to talk to him about why, because there was a 4-year period there where Ben Swan was possibly my favorite journalist in this country, and I think he's gotten a little off track. Is all I'm saying.
Fair criticism. Enough. I don't know. I don't know enough about him to make. I know an awful lot about Grant, and I think some of the shit he writes is really out there, and it's kind of weird. It gets kind of like I don't know, romance novel. Right. It's see. He doesn't wear pants when he writes, and it's kind of like reading...
Are you wearing pants right now?
Maybe.
It's kind of like reading 50 Shades of Grey with, Bernie Sanders thrown in. Sprinkle in Bernie Sanders, some McDonald's, things like that. Stuff starts to get weird pretty quickly in his writing. So...
Well, I need to go, guys.
That's all right. I don't know how to get it off live, Rachel, but thanks for coming on.
Clue.
Okay.
And remember, next week, Politics After Dark.
Politics After Dark.
At Liberty.me. Right, after our show at 10 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for coming on. You can go. We're just going to make fun of each other now.
Okay.
All
you
right.
can make fun of me.
No, not
just
we don't make
sure
fun of you.
After I go.
You're way too good looking to make fun of. I don't have anything bad to say. All right, bye.
Bye. It was fun. Thank you.